1, 2, 3, 4. All we are saying is give peace a chance.
I have today signed an executive order providing for the establishment of a Peace Corps on a temporary pilot basis. I'm hopeful that it will be a source of satisfaction to Americans and a contribution to world peace.
In October of 1960, Senator John F. Kennedy addressed a group of students at the University of Michigan. In an unplanned speech of just a few minutes, he changed the course of how America related to the world.
How many of you who are going to be doctors are willing to spend your days in Ghana, technicians or engineers? How many of you are willing to work in the Foreign Service and spend your lives traveling around the world?
The Peace Corps took its place in American history at a pivotal moment nationally and internationally. By 1960, after 2 world wars, America had attained unparalleled economic, military, and political power, and was poised as a new world superpower locked in a global struggle with the Soviet Union, the Cold War. In the recently decolonized nations of the Third World, the Cold War played out in a battle for the hearts and minds of the newly independent people. American foreign policy strategists feared that developing countries, desperate for aid, would fall prey to communism. Meanwhile, U.S. diplomats working in post-colonial nations had presented a negative image of America. They were perceived as elitists, out of touch with the people, ignorant of their languages and customs.
I had the experience one time of an official abroad handing me a glove that I could wear so that when I shook hands with the natives, that I wouldn't get contaminated.
This image of the American Third World diplomat was captured in the influential 1958 novel The Ugly American by William Lederer and Eugene Burdick. In a campaign speech titled Staffing a Foreign Policy for Peace, Kennedy warned that on the other side of the globe, diplomats skilled in languages and customs, teachers, doctors, technicians, and experts, are pouring forth from Moscow to advance the cause of world communism. Think of the wonders skilled American personnel could work. To accomplish this, he proposed a new government organization, one in which the best of American character and values could be introduced to the people of developing countries, a Peace Corps. Brought into existence by executive order on March 1, 1961, the Peace Corps was established to promote world peace and friendship. It had 3 goals: helping the people of interested countries in meeting their need for trained men and women, helping promote a better understanding of Americans on the part of the people served, and helping promote a better understanding of other peoples on the part of Americans. Embodied in goals 2 and 3 was the foundation for a new kind of American diplomacy, people to people.
It's a very, very important part of the job of the Peace Corps volunteer, to go overseas, to supply them with the help that they need, and then to come back to our own country and to tell our friends, tell our neighbors about our experience and about this other culture. You know, to try to set right some of the misunderstandings that we naturally have about other people.
The program captured the imagination of an idealistic generation hungry to demonstrate the other side of America's newfound strength, its morality.
It's no surprise Peace Corps was created when it was created in the darkest hours of the Cold War, but yet at the same time appealing to the idealism, optimism of youth. Coming out of the time of the Civil Rights Movement, Peace Corps was very much a creature of the moment, of the historical context.
Kennedy appointed his brother-in-law, Sergeant Shriver, to head up the Peace Corps. He and other architects of the Peace Corps were adamant that in order for the program to be successful, they had to separate it from the Cold War foreign policy machine. Shriver proved to be a gifted ambassador of peace. After his first trip, 8 nations welcomed the Peace Corps, despite the fact that the U.S. had invaded Cuba's Bay of Pigs just 3 weeks earlier. Communist newspapers and radio stations spread fear and propaganda, declaring that the Peace Corps was just another form of imperialism, replacing the newly overthrown European colonialists with American ones. The program was hotly debated at home as well. Former Vice President Richard Nixon called it a haven for draft dodgers, and Eisenhower, in addressing a Republican gathering, called it a juvenile experiment.
If you want to take a trip to the moon, send the Peace Corps up there. And it might be a very good place to try out this experiment, sort of a juvenile experiment.
Despite these criticisms, in just under 6 years, the Peace Corps was in 55 countries with more than 15,000 volunteers. People-to-people diplomacy was proving to be an effective tool in repairing America's image and making friends for the U.S. Volunteers were building relationships at a grassroots level, offering tangible assistance and expanding their understanding of other cultures and people. American cultural influences were felt as well.
When John Glenn made his flight into space, they would come into school, "Please, sir." Then they would salute, "Please, sir." Stand at attention and salute, "Please, sir. I am now John Glenn. Ajibo," whatever the other name.
As Sergeant Shriver liked to say, the world slogan is changing from "Yankee go home" to "Send us more volunteers." But this success would not last.
It appears as though something has happened in the motorcade route. Something, I repeat, has happened in the motorcade route.
The assassination of President Kennedy shocked the world, and the hopes and dreams of an idealistic America began to slip away. The escalation of the Vietnam War caused a deep rift between the American people and their government. This led to a steep decrease in the number of Peace Corps applicants. A decline in world opinion of the U.S. led to a wave of rejections of the Peace Corps, protesting U.S. foreign policy.
A lot of people felt that perhaps it was hypocritical to be trying to promote peace while you were engaged in a war. A number of volunteers questioned both the integrity of the Peace Corps and the real motives of the United States in sending the Peace Corps.
After the Vietnam War, the Peace Corps never regained the successful momentum of its early years.
The measure of non-success of the Peace Corps is that it remained so small. It was, for us, a symbol of what we should do, but we didn't do it.
Shortly after the attacks of 9/11, Sergeant Shriver addressed the failures of the program and called for a more ambitious effort. Our present world cries out for a new Peace Corps, vastly improved and expanded. I'm not defending the old Peace Corps, I'm attacking it. We didn't go far enough. Our dreams were large, but our actions were small.
The real diplomacy that in this new world that we need is that which the Peace Corps was pointing toward. And we need that on a large scale. President Kennedy said to me, "You know, this will be really serious when it's 100,000 a year Peace Corps volunteers. And then in one decade, there'll be 1 million Americans who've had firsthand experience." And he wanted a quantum leap in what we did in the world. And if it were small, it would just be a symbol. That's not what he was looking for.
Although the Peace Corps never grew to the number of volunteers envisioned by its founders, today, 50 years later, the consequences of Kennedy's new diplomacy can be found in the experiences of the 200,000 volunteers and the friendships they built with the people of 139 countries around the globe.
Diplomacy is essentially about relationships with others. The 200,000 people who've had the Peace Corps experience believe that relationships are best built on understanding, speaking each other's language, eating each other's food, working together side by side, so that we understand that humanity has shared aspirations for the future.
Today's leaders recognize that people-to-people diplomacy is more important now than ever in building bridges of understanding and tolerance among nations.
There are some 20 countries that have government finance programs. There are also a lot of world leaders who are calling out for Peace Corps type programs in their region. We're really on the cusp of a new era in international service.
If we want America to be what it can be, and the world would like to believe it will be, we've got to find a way for a quantum jump in international volunteering and service under whatever banner and name, Peace Corps or some new social invention that makes it possible.
My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man.